everybody. Welcome to Beer with the Boss. That's right. This is a podcast where an employee and his boss have a beer together and talk about technology. And by the way, let us know, what do you want us to talk about? Leave your comments in the section below in the platform you're listening to this podcast, or just click the link in the description of this episode and go to our social media and let us know what you want us to talk about in the next one. I'm Rodrigo Matos, and I work at WebBeta, and here with me today is my boss, Joel, the CEO at WebBeta. Hey there, Joel, how you doing, and what beer are you drinking today?
Hey, Rodrigo. Thank you so much for the introduction. I really appreciate your help here with us today. Thank you for everybody that's listening to. So right now I'm drinking to a Delirium Tremens, and it's a Latin word, so the way I understand. So figured out how to pronounce this in English, but it wasn't that easy. Yeah, so this beer, it seems was elected one of the best beers of the, or the best beer of the world a long time ago, or not so long, right? But it's a very good beer. It's a Belgian ale. You can find a lot of things for this beer over the internet, but I am privileged to have a themed bar on this beer on my county. So Loudoun County, yeah. There is a bar for Delirium beers in Lindsborg, which is closest seat here in the county, inside of Loudoun County, Virginia, where I live. So they have
That's amazing.
Yeah, they have a bar here, which is European beer, but they have one bar here in US. So it's a very good one, and I'm happy that I have them close by.
Yeah, that's great. I don't think there is a Delirium bar in Brazil, right? I don't think so.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I know that I have this one here close by. So, and I love the beer. Me and my neighbor, he's a German person, but he drinks a lot of different beers. And actually, looking at the can here, I can see that's imported by a company in Frederick, Maryland, which is not far from here. So that's probably why. So the distribution center for them in this region in US at least is close by, so that's why they had a
Belgian beer is good. The Belgium.
How about you? What's the beer?
I'm drinking a Layback APA. It's a local brewed beer here in Florianopolis, where I live. And actually, I was reading the description here. And this brewery is owned by a Brazilian a professional skateboard athlete called Pedro Barros. He's a world champion, and he was silver medal last in Tokyo 2020. Yeah, Tokyo 2020. So yeah, it's good to be drinking a beer brewed by a silver Olympic medalist. That's great. Awesome, Joel. Well, you are my boss. That's why it's Beer with the Boss. And we've been having lots of talks during the last few weeks, and you've been mentioning value stream a lot. And, I would like to ask you what exactly value stream is, and what are your views on it?
So value stream is a thing that came from manufacturing, basically, originally, I think, Six Sigma and all those things originally, which is trying to measure each one of the steps that you do on your production line, and then Lean adopted, and then DevOps now adopted. You try to measure how much value or time is in each step of the production of something, and then detect how many failures you had, how many time you did not spend producing because you had a bottleneck on somewhere. So you had waiting. So the idea here is an example. You have if you get each one of the steps of a DevOps, and I'm talking more about from the perspective of DevOps because WebBeta is a DevOps company. But if you get all the steps on the infinite symbol of that DevOps, which is code planning, the original the PDCA from Deming, right? If you get the PDCA from Deming, DevOps is a little bit more extravagant on the names, but it's the same. So you plan, do, act, check, act, and do it again, do it again. So if you cut each one of those steps, and then you try to measure, an example, how long each task spent on being planned, on being coded, on being built, and then each one of steps, how many of them you had failures, so they passed to the next step and they faded, or how long you have someone waiting for a task because was stuck in the previous step. So you start to learn in a way and improving your process and find bottlenecks to deliver your code, your product faster. So value stream is a great tool that can help any organization to deliver their outcomes faster. Yeah, so that's value stream in a
In a
very short.
nutshell. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. I can see why it is important to map and understand the value stream, but how do you approach mapping it? Should it be top down? Should it involve everybody in the organization? How do you suggest or recommend organizations start mapping it out?
So in organization they have different how can I say, tools to they produce different things, right? If I was a manufacturing thing, it's native of the manufacturing industry, these things, right? But on our case, which we are a DevOps company, was a software company, technology company. I think the best way to start to do is get the two ends, right? Where does your feature appear and where it starts the planning, and then you start to follow. Okay, from when someone asks something, what's the steps to get that thing to the user or to and then you start to monitor to name each one of those steps, right? And then each one of those steps you will try to assign owners or who are the executors of that task. And then after you have the executors or the owners, you start to say, okay, how long you do this? And there is a belief that you have to be very, like an example, you start to monitor the developers, how long they work on that task and things like that. I don't believe in that because it creates a over complication. Like you start to add a bunch of tools and monitor people, which is kind of bad if you wanted them to be creative. But the point is to have like an example. You have the first step, the planning. So this is a clear example. Well, the planning is the PO, the product owner is the owner, right? So how long the PO keeps the tasks on the grooming phase? How long it takes to, okay, someone asks something and then he sent to the developers to get the code. And then you say, okay, this week we had 10 tasks coming out of the planning phase. Okay, how many hours he worked? Oh, he works in the company 40 hours. Okay, so he spent 4 hours per task, right? And then next week the developers have those 10 tasks and they complete 5 of them. How many hours they had? Oh, the two developers, they had 5 tasks completed, so they completed 80 hours per week, which is divided by 5 is some number. Right? Divided by 5 is, I don't know, 16. So 16 hours per task. So each task is spent 16 hours. Oh, and those out of those 10 tasks from the first that went to develop it, they had to send 2 back to the PO. So that means that the effectiveness of the PO was 80%. So 80% of the tasks were corrected, 20% had failures. And then the developers they send back to build and deploy. They send 2 tasks, right? So the other 3 were defective. So they send it back. So then you have the QA process. Then you have the deployment to the stage, then the production. So you end up in this 2-week process, you had like 2 tasks delivering production. So and then you can measure back all the work that was done, and each phase you can have a learning curve, right? So and then you can go down and say, okay, why did the tasks came back from the first step? Like, oh, the PO missed a description of the UI. So what? So some of those things. So you can start a little learning process to detect and prevent failures to happen. So the value stream is it's an amazing tool to do that.
Amazing. So at the end of the day, everybody's involved, right? Everybody involved in that will benefit from it, because even though sometimes you don't know where you are, if you are messing up, and nobody knows that you are messing up, but then you can see that clearly and you can improve from that, and everybody grows. That's awesome. Awesome, Joel. So I'm thinking now from vendor client kind of perspective. How can you use this in a client and then deliver value to that client by mapping the value stream?
At Webero, we have two different or main different services that we provide, right? We have the DevOps as a service and the managed DevOps services. You can get more details on our page, but I will let you know, so a little bit. Just like on a perspective of a DevOps team, and that applies for business because it will show you that DevOps team doesn't really have. They can start the questioning, but it's pretty hard if they don't have benefit. If they don't have support from the management. So on the DevOps services, we are a DevOps team working side of the client, right? We're basically a pod or a squad working on the side of the client with the tools of the client. In that case, we basically try to show the value that the value stream will add to the client. We don't do, right? We cannot do unless the client asks us, and we train our teams to do that. But we show and we try to advise them to use and perform this because we see the benefit happens when people start to do. So we can implement, but we are more like an advisor. On the managed DevOps services, on the other hand, which we are a shared team that provide the entire DevOps stacks to our customers, we start the service by doing that. That's the only way that we have to see if we're performing well or not. So in that case, the first thing that we do is map the client process to our stack, which is vanilla DevOps. So we do the code, build all the steps that we have there, and try to show the client where are the benefit, where he can improve by using this stack, right? Where are the bottlenecks, and how can we make their our work provide more value? So that's kind of how we divide the managed DevOps in our case.
That's pretty cool. Awesome, Joel. Thank you so much for having a beer with me today.
Thank you. Have a good day, and let's do it
again.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again next week. And thank you everybody for listening to us. Let us know what you thought about today's episode and what kind of topic would you like us to bring next week. We're definitely going to be back next week with a new topic and new beers. I'm really curious to know what beers you're going to be drinking next week, Joel. I have no idea what I will, but yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye for now. Bye.